Welcome to the Everyday Saint podcast, brought to you by Cedar Fort Publishing and Media. Here we meet with authors who share highlights of their latest book and the backstory behind its creation. I'm your host, Richard Bernard. Val Bagley, a renowned cartoonist and illustrator who has made a significant impact through his creative work in many books. He joins us today to talk about his latest children's book, When I Think Celestial. Now, here's Val. Val, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, you just told me that you live in the beautiful state of Wyoming. Where exactly are you in Wyoming?
Well, I actually live in Fairview, Wyoming, but nobody knows where Fairview is, but I live in Star Valley. When you hear Star Valley, everybody seems to know somebody from Star Valley. So that's where I was born, in Star Valley, but my parents moved me to California when I was 6 weeks old. So I grew up in California. And then I moved to Utah in 1980 and lived in Utah until 2016. So I've lived in Star Valley since almost 8 years this September.
And how many steer or cows do you own?
Well, I own 0 cows or steers. I have a cat.
You have a cat?
Yeah, I have a cat, yeah.
And you don't have any horses?
Oh, no. In fact, even though I was born in Wyoming, I'm not at all really a cowboy. I'm more of a California guy, if anything, since I grew up there. So no, I don't have any. I only have Wyoming heritage, but not necessarily Wyoming upbringing or characteristics.
Okay. So you're still accepted and allowed to be in the state if you don't have some wild...
Well, that's a whole nother, we can do another podcast. Yeah, I'm accepted. Just because people are nice here in Star Valley, but definitely people who are born and raised in Star Valley, they have this pedigree of you're not really from here, but we are, and don't try to change anything. But more and more people are moving to Star Valley, so the people who are from here are kind of feel like their elbows are getting squunched in from the influx.
Do you have a cowboy hat?
Well, that's a whole other thing too. My cowboy hats. No, I have several cowboy hats. Yeah, because I entertain at the county fair. I do this whole thing where I'm Roy McCoy, the quick draw cowboy, and so I have a big black cowboy hat and a big black mustache, and so yeah, I play a cowboy, just not in real life.
Oh, okay. Well, and then I'm just curious, when the men go to church there, are they wearing the, I don't know what they call them. It's a little
bolo tie?
Yeah.
Bolo tie. We have a few of those, yeah, and we have quite a few who wear cowboy boots. I mean, so it's people who are from here and love being cowboys, they embrace it. So.
Yep. Well, it's a great culture. I think it's got a lot of positives to it, certainly. And I have a brother that's, a brother-in-law that's in Arizona, and he's up in the northern part, and he said people come in their jeans and cowboy boots and a bolo tie and a white shirt. And sometimes the cowboy shirts that have got the little mother pearl buttons on them. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's dressing up to them. So, well, you've written a lot of books from what I understand. In fact, you said you've written about 100 books?
Yeah, it's more than that, but yeah. I've been self-employed since 1990, and my very first book I did in 1980, which ironically Cedar Fort owns the rights to now, called Mission Mania. So I did that back in 1978 and 1980 or something. But yeah, I was with Covenant Communications for 30 years, and so I've done a majority of my books with Covenant, but now I'm with Cedar Fort, and they've done 2 new books for me.
Okay.
They did, my first one was Seek and Find Book of Mormon Examples, and that book's just maybe a year old, I don't know, but my newest book is When I Think Celestial.
Yes, and I'm looking at it right now, and I didn't know what to expect. Cedar Fort asked me to get in touch with you and interview you regarding this book that came out. And I only knew the title, When I Think Celestial, Seek and Find. I thought, well, now that's going to be an interesting book to read. And then I get the manuscript and I go, there's not much reading involved in this book.
No, there is not much. No, it's a children's book. It's for children. and that's how it's written. It's reliant, 90% of it is reliant on my illustrations that has a gospel message on each page and a gospel principle. And that's the whole premise and the foundation of the book. So yeah, it's meant to be something that children are going to be able to comprehend.
Yes.
So if you're going into it thinking you're going to read this spellbinding story, that's not what this is.
Well, that's what I was looking for, but I found a book that's actually writes for my level. So so I can understand some gospel principles. I'm looking at the first page here. It says, "Can you find all these images in the book?" And I'm just describing it to the audience here. There's a young boy. He's in a white shirt and tie, and he's on a bicycle. And there's some people who look like they're playing hide and seek or something like that. The center of it is, I'm assuming it's Heavenly Father hugging a boy, and
right.
And there's some giraffes, which I assume they're poking out of a ship or something. And,
out of the ark.
The ark, okay.
Noah's Ark, yeah.
And then we've got two little boys here sitting, being very reverent with their arms crossed. And looking at the next page doesn't have any words at all. It just shows a lot of children and Jesus. And he's got his arms around a young girl and a young boy. And now I'm curious, is that an angel? Below that, it looks like a woman.
Right. That's an interesting question. See, I have to get permission from the church. Well, not me personally, but Deseret Book will not carry certain books. And when I did this book, I had to get permission to use the title Think Celestial.
Yes.
Because President Nelson, who I actually based this book on, I was trying to honor President Nelson by doing a book called When I Think Celestial. And Deseret Book balked at that idea, saying, you got to get permission from the church or we're not going to use this. And so I went back to Cedar Fort and told them that, and they said, well, we can't wait for you to get permission. Let's just change the title. And I'm like, And so I changed the title When I Think of Jesus. And they said, okay, let's do that. And I thought about it during the day. I thought the book's not about that. Just to call it When I Think of Jesus, but the book is not about thinking about Jesus. So I said, I have a connection with Bishop Cozet, the presiding bishop. I had drawn a cartoon for him. And so I had his email address and his text. And so I asked him, how do I go about getting permission from the church? And he gave me the contact information of the person to go through to get, because they have a whole department of the legal rights and stuff. So I reached out to that person and they said, yeah, I'll get on it right away. And something that usually should take 6 months or even a year to get permission, I got it in under less than a month. So I got permission to use When I Think Celestial. So having done that, they said, there's one thing we don't like about your book. You got to take Heavenly Mother out of it. We don't want it, because I had the Heavenly Mother. This first picture you're talking about is in the premortal life. And I had Heavenly Mother also in this picture. You can see there's clouds there now. So we took her out, and I also took her out at the end. But you see this mother kneeling down at the ground. She's the nondescript person that you proposed that it might have been an angel. In my mind, that could still be Heavenly Mother, although it's not mentioned anywhere. That's just my own interpretation of, I think our Heavenly Mother was also there to send us off to Earth. So on the next page, you can see that the Earth that we all came down to. And so,
I see that. I
guess the format you're looking at on your device there is showing one page at a time, and I'm looking at both pages because every one is a double page spread. And so when you say there's no words, the words are on the next page.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I for the audience, I'm using my iPad. I get all the manuscripts as a digital form from Cedar Fort, because most of the books I get have paragraphs.
Sure. And they're not necessary to see both pages at once, but mine, it's like you're seeing half of a story.
Yes. So I see then the words, it says, when I think celestial, I think about the plan of salvation and how I lived with my heavenly parents and Jesus before I came to earth.
Yeah, and see, I love that. Why I started at the very beginning. I showed that before we came to earth, we live with our heavenly parents, and we were told about the plan of salvation. So it sets the foundation of why we are here. And I love the simplicity of this, that it just shows us, our heavenly parents, and earth, and that's the message for that first page.
Yeah, and the next page, I love the artwork because, let me read what it says. When I think celestial, I think about coming to earth to get a physical body and to live with a family. And it shows part of a home with a welcome sign, and the mother is holding, obviously, an infant that's only a few days old, and there's a little girl offering the teddy bear to the infant, and there's a son, and there's another daughter the father is holding, and so they are welcoming this newborn into the family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love this where she's offering the teddy bear to the this child. Right. It's all wrapped up. I like
and I'll
that.
tell you on a side note of this, I have some families in my ward here in Star Valley, and they posed for me.
Oh.
So one day at church, after church, I had them all meet together, and they're all still in their church clothes and stuff. And so they posed for all these photos, so I'd have a reference to draw them all. And so they were excited to be a part of this adventure of getting to pose in a book.
Yeah, and so now that I understand your layout of the book, I can see the rest of the half of the house, and it's got some balloons. And it says it's a girl, and we love you, and it shows some children. It looks like they're in a tree house.
Right. I love drawing tree houses.
Oh.
I don't know if kids still do tree houses, but I think they're cool, and I think they make it fun. And now you'll notice, too, along the bottom of each of these pages are squares that show the different scenes. That's what makes this a seek and find book, is you try to find these images along the bottom of the pages or along the top. And so now you look for those. That's why it's called a seek and find book.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now, I don't want you to get distracted, Richard. You're going to start looking for stuff now as we're talking on each page.
Yeah, well, you wrote this at my level, so I'm very tempted to see what I can find. Well, the next one shows baptism, and I'm just going to go through these quickly here. You cover baptism, the sacrament. Wow.
And by the way, you see how I have Jesus interjected in some of these, not on every page, but some of them it shows Jesus as an example of being baptized there. And then the next one shows Jesus in Gethsemane atoning for our sins, and that's what is representative of taking the sacrament. Yes. So I tried to, again, when they were telling me you had to change the title, When I Think of Jesus, almost worked for this book, but that wasn't really what the book was about. But he's definitely the central figure in what I'm trying to convey here.
Yeah, it shows a family sitting very reverently, and because the way this is hooked up, your pages, there are 2 pages. It's the sacrament, and it shows the Savior kneeling and praying.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, and then we see someone's being set apart here. That's Jesus, and he's
ordaining Peter.
Yeah,
he's ordaining Peter as because the next one is when I think celestial, I think about being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's the same church Jesus organized when he was on the earth. In fact, I was just reading, President Oak's message today. I saw an email or a church message, how some people don't think it's important to belong to an organized church. Just, I believe in God, and that's good enough for me. And it's multiple times in the scriptures it talks about Jesus organized a church.
Yeah.
And so we are members of that same church that he has organized and been restored. It's important to know. It's not, we don't get to just decide, well, church isn't for me, I'm going to do my own thing, but I still believe in God. That's not how it works. We don't tell God how we're going to return back to him. He tells us what's required. And being a member of his church is one of those requirements.
Absolutely. And so it shows a young boy talking about being a member of the church and covenants. You cover covenants and choosing the right.
I have to tell you, on the covenant ones, I have to tell you, because it's a hard word to convey. covenants. I mean, how do you draw a covenant? And so I went back to, and that's why the rainbow is on the cover of the book. And I used rainbows multiple times throughout this book. When the earth was flooded, afterwards, the Lord had given the rainbow as a covenant that I will not flood the earth again. So that was my way. Also, the world has hijacked what a rainbow is supposed to represent. It has
Yes.
become something that is not accurate to what rainbows are supposed to be. And so I am trying to reclaim that strongly through this book by putting rainbows, like I say, on the cover of the book, but also saying this is a covenant that God has given us, that he's going to answer our prayers and he's going to keep our promises. And so I love that imagery of using a rainbow.
Well, you've brought something to me to mind I've never really thought about. I understand that the rainbow is a sign of the covenant, and I do know the rainbow is being used for other things, and that ties in with the lesson we had at Sunday school, where the Antichrist is taking over in our society, and this is one example. They take something that stands for a covenant and twist it around to mean something else. Yeah.
Right.
I haven't thought about that and then connect. I've never connected the two rainbows together. Thank you.
Right. See how deep, even cartoonists, we're deep thinkers, or at least I am. I mean, it was not an accident. I intentionally did that for those two reasons, was to convey that. And so I'm grateful for that inspiration. I have to tell you one more thing on that, because I'll forget. I work at the temple. I'm a temple worker, and it was on a Tuesday, and it was Halloween, and I love Halloween. At any rate, it was also after I'd done my temple shift. I was one of the supposed to, with my ward, stay and clean the temple. And after working at the temple all day, I just wanted to go home, but I knew I had a responsibility. And our temple president came in and visited with everyone who was going to be cleaning the temple. And he says, I hope you take the opportunity while you're in the temple today to listen to the Spirit. And I'm thinking, I just want to go home. Been here all day. It's Halloween. I wanted to go home. But my assignment was to polish the handles of the doors going into baptistry. That was my assignment, or one of them. So anyway, as I'm polishing this door handle, it was like the Spirit was standing right next to me and said, this book you're working on, When I Think Celestial, was not your idea. That's a gift to you for your service in the temple. And I'm so grateful that the temple president had told us to listen to the Spirit, because I was just there doing what I was supposed to do. If I hadn't taken the time to listen, I wouldn't have had that inspiration to go, this wasn't your idea to do this book. You've been given this.
Right.
And so the whole thing of it, having the title get approved so quickly, and to have it be President Nelson's 100th birthday in just a few months, all these things all have just come together. And I feel so blessed and fortunate that I get to be a part of it.
Well, thank you for sharing. I've had similar experiences, and yes, the Lord does lead us during certain paths if we just take the time to listen. So yes, you're right. Making covenants is difficult to understand, and you got the rainbow. And what I understand about art, if I look at a Monet, for example, I never think that they're just putting a brush stroke in. I've always got the concept that an artist is concerned about every stroke of the pen or the brush, and nothing is by accident. So we have the children here with an umbrella, and it's raining.
Well, wait, I got to tell you the one on choosing the right.
Yeah.
It says, when I think celestial, I think about choosing the right. And you see these various gospel principles that they're all holding up words for. And the challenge with trying to draw something choosing the right is you almost always have to draw something that's wrong. You know, you have to have the opposite to portray it. And so instead of trying to attempt that, I just had them hold up the words to make it more simple. And it's one of my favorite pages because, again, these were kids that were posing for me. And I like the little guy who's got his sign, it says pray, and he's covering his face. and see if in a perfect world, I would have said, "Hey, lift your sign up. It's a little too, it's covering your face." But that's my favorite part. That's as good as he
Yeah.
can do is hold up that sign. And so anyway, that's what I like about this particular page. It's so deliberate and simplistic, yet it has such a great message on it.
It does. It talks about love one another, study the scriptures, forgive others, keep the word of wisdom, pay my tithing, pray, obey the commandments, and remember Jesus. And now we've got Moses, and we've got the ark, Noah, and we've got gathering up the sheaves, and that's Isaiah. And and then the words, I'm looking for the words. When I think celestial, I think of the scriptures. And so you got more. You have Christ carrying a lamb, and you've got, I'm guessing that's Nephi. He's holding the plates, plates with the sword. And there's the giraffes.
Yep. Look at you finding stuff all by yourself. I didn't even have to help you. Yeah, there's the page at the beginning that shows you find stuff, and then again along the bottom of each page has you finding things.
And then next you go into, I think, of prophets. And,
right.
And I'm looking here. How many do you have them all? It looks like you got them all.
Have them all, and they're all in order, too.
Yes, they are. They are in order. There's President Monson, and okay. And then you cover prayer, and shows Heavenly Father, or Jesus Christ praying, and a father and a daughter praying, and while the family is also, I'm getting to the next page, is on their knees and praying. This really is a very delightful book. It really is. I think even adults would enjoy going through it.
I'd hope so. I try to make it, but I know children, and especially grandchildren or grandparents, are going to be looking at it because they're going to read to their grandchildren who can't read yet, and just show them the gospel principles. I tried to make it very accessible to understand, because we, as members of the church who have grown up in the church, just take for granted gospel principles. And let's say there's so many converts in the church who just want to learn the basics. And so this book gives you the basics without being overwhelming. If you just understood the basic principles of the gospel that are in these pages, you'll just be better off by understanding them and by living them. And I think sometimes we get overwhelmed by all the different apps and there's so much information out there.
Right.
And so you have to start with the simplistic things first.
Now, what is the size of the book?
It is
as far as width and
yeah, it's 10 inches tall and I think 8 inches wide. Let's see. Yeah, it's about 8 by 10.
8 by 10. Okay. And is it heavier paper because we're dealing with children?
No, it's soft. It's soft cover. Well, the pages, they're medium weight. They're not glossy. They're just I've done so many different kinds of books. This one here is just your basic standard book. It's interesting how printing has changed over the years, and how most books are on a more of a glossy stock, and that's not what this is.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just their new standard of printing to make it more cost effective and easier to ship. I don't know, but it works for what this book is.
Now, is it spiral bound to lay flat, or how's it bound?
No, I wish it was. Spiral bounding costs so much more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, tremendously amount more. But this particular book doesn't need to be spiral bound. It's soft cover. It's the kind of thing that makes it easy to just take to church. It's a quiet book. That's kind of what it's been designed for. I'll tell you this, that I've had parents tell me they don't let their children look at my books except at church or except on the Sabbath day. That way they keeps them more special.
Yeah.
If you just looked at it every single day, you'd probably get tired of it. But if it's the day you get to look at it, then it has a more special meaning and more of a purpose.
Okay. Well, it is a wonderful book for parents, and and
Well, you got to, my favorite page, you didn't talk about this one yet, is the one with the winter scene. It says, when I think celestial, I think of what Jesus said, that we should love one another. This one's I just love drawing winter scenes, not just because I live in Star Valley. I love winter, but I just love the imagery of it because it shows Jesus washing Peter's feet, showing that's how he was expressing his love and humility for Peter. But it shows this family, this community taking care of this widow by bringing her food and shoveling her walk and all these things. And so this is my favorite page. So I hope that you get to show them that one. And then there's also temples and are we going to get to there? Or do you want me to tell you the one about the resurrection?
Go ahead. Keep going.
The resurrection, I don't think I've ever seen a children's book that has a casket as the center focus of a children's book. I mean, it's kind of sad, but I wanted to give it hope. And so on this particular page, it shows a casket. Who knows if it was grandma or grandpa? It doesn't matter who has died, but it shows the family mourning. But over on the left-hand page, it shows Jesus emerging from the garden tomb and this little girl with the rainbow umbrella, and she's looking up at the rainbow, showing that she knows that she's going to see this person who has died. Everyone else is downtrodden and gloomy with the dark clouds and stuff, but the little girl has faith and hope that she's going to see that person who has died. And so that's what I was conveying on this page.
It's very well done. Because her umbrella is the rainbow colors.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the last very page, when I think celestial, I think of returning to my heavenly parents and Jesus, because that's what it's all about. This whole book is about where we began and where we want to return. And so that's what I was trying to convey, that it wasn't just a book about thinking celestial. That's kind of not an abstract thought, but it's not necessarily a deliberate thought. When President Nelson said why not to think celestial, he wanted us to have higher thoughts and such. I wanted to create a book that tells you how to do that. And I'm not saying I can tell President Nelson how to think celestial so much as I was trying to piggyback on his objective.
Well, I think you accomplished it.
Thank you.
I really do. I think you accomplished it, and I think sometimes people see a book like this and think, well, you just quickly did some drawings and put in some words, but it's very evident that a lot of thought, as with any book, a lot of thought went into it and exactly what you're going to portray. And yes, it's very nice, the winter scene, and people bringing boxes to the woman who's got a blanket wrapped around her because it's cold. And it is a very delightful book.
Well, I'll tell you this, I liked it so much that, and I love the message of it, that Cedar Fort in 2025, just next year, will be coming out with a coloring and activity book called, what is it called? I will think celestial. And so it's going to have dot to dots and mazes and coloring pages and things to find. But it's not just a book like this. It's this book, but different, because there's things to do inside of it. So it's it's not a sequel and it's not a reboot. It's an enhanced version of this. Mm-hmm. Now it's not just it's going to have these pages in it, but so much more.
Yes.
Things, matching things. It's an activity book, and that'll be out. I wanted to get it out in time for President Nelson's 100th birthday, because I knew that was going to be a big thing. And I even got it finished in time. But the problem is I was kind of trying to butt in line of other books that they already have a schedule, because I know they scheduled probably a year in advance. And so even though they like the idea of trying to get it done by September, it could have potentially been done, but I would have cut in front of the line, so they had to
Yeah.
push it to 2025. But that'll be coming out next year.
All right. Well, your book right now, where is it available? Obviously, they can go to cedarfort.com, but is it on Amazon now?
Yeah, I don't know. I never looked for it. I know Deseret Book has it, and I'm
Okay.
pretty sure Siegel Book does. But I know Deseret Book has it because one of my cousins sent me a picture of it on their new
Oh.
releases on their
Okay.
shelf. So I know it's carried there. Because living in Star Valley, well, they have it up here in Star Valley. If anyone wants to come up here, they have it in the bookstore here. So those are the places. I assume they have it on Amazon, but I don't know myself.
Yeah.
I suppose the Cedar Fort people probably can give you some
Yeah,
information.
I would imagine
it.
I would imagine it's also on Amazon, but I will
Yeah.
check. I will check. And this is a great book for Christmas.
Definitely. Oh yeah, this. I lots of people buy my books at Christmas time, and so yeah, I'm sure that will be well received.
Well, I thank you for your time. It's been delightful spending time with you. And like I said, it's nice to see a book that's written to something I can understand, and I enjoyed it, and the artwork is just really delightful. And so I want to thank you for your time, and you have a great time there in Wyoming.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me on.
All right. You have a great day. Val's books are available, of course, at cedarfort.com and on Amazon. Your support means the world to us, and if you've enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up and share an uplifting comment. By doing so, you'll help others discover this podcast and join our growing community of listeners. Lastly, don't forget to explore the other podcast I host, The Busy Latter-day Saint. In each episode, I have the privilege of interviewing incredible members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from all around the world who share their personal experiences and unique insights on Scripture study. The podcast is spiritually uplifting and a treasure trove of different approaches to studying the Scriptures.